All right, guys, so welcome to another episode of the Scratch Agency podcast. Today we have Aaron Gordon with Gordon Companies from New York City joining us on the show. Today's been all about New York agents, apparently. We had Crowley on a little earlier. We got Steve from upstate. We got me downstate and Aaron from New York City. So, Aaron, welcome to the show. To start us out, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the industry.
Or the Big Apple, baby. This is teamwork makes the dream work, and this team right here, I'm inspired and honored to be with you guys, but put three New Yorkers together. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be good stuff. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't
know if that's enough background, but I'm born and raised in the core of this apple. Second generation insurance agent. My father started our firm in 1968, and still here every day. Office on that side of the wall. My mother's office on the other side of the wall, and we're doing things old school. So I don't have the benefit, sometimes I like to say, of doing things scratch fully, but we're trying to do things a little different. So I kind of try to do my best to do certain things the way I would if I was scratch, and then I just get lucky that I get the benefit of an existing book that some people are not blessed to have, present company included or excluded. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Aaron, how long have you been in the industry for?
I am here 12 plus years full time, and I did 6 years part time before that. So I was in high school when I started, and part time in college. Kind of, I like to tell people that my parents forced me to do it, but they didn't. So that's what it is.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you got dragged into it.
It's funny, actually. You know, my brothers and I, we never discussed it around the table. So I have two brothers, and both of them have careers and professions outside of the insurance industry, which is great. But it's like, you know, the real story, the real true story, we'll get it here. We're New Yorkers, so we'll just spit the truth. I was looking for a summer job. And my dad's like, hey, why don't you come work for us? And honestly, the first time my mom gave me a paycheck, it's going to sound funny, but like I didn't think they were going to pay me. I just like assumed that I might get like extra allowance, but like then she handed me this thing. She's like, here's your pay stub. And I'm like, what's that? And she's like, you're a summer intern here. You're getting paid. And I was like, oh, cool. This is like real money. This is not like the fake money that I thought I was going to be making. Not that it was like a lot of money, but it was just funny how that kind of happens. And then I just stayed on. And I love this game, man. You know?
Yeah.
I posted on Twitter last week that, you know, there's a great scene in The Godfather. You know, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. And it's like, you know, like, every time I want to hate on this thing, it pulls me back in. So that's how I got started. I kind of fell into it, and it was like, you know, my parents are a little bit older. My dad just turned 82, thank God, and I'm only 35. And my mother's not in my age bracket, not quite in my dad's, but closer. So, like, they were like, hey, if we're going to do this, let's do this. If not, we'll just sell it. You know what I mean? Like, ride it out or retire or whatever. But, like, if we're going to do this, let's try to have fun. So,
yeah, that's great.
So I wish I could hate on this game.
What did so when you first got into the industry, like what you said you started basically as like an intern. So what did you like start? What were you doing?
So I wasn't allowed to touch a phone or a computer for the first 4 years or so. The only time I was allowed to touch the phone was, so we didn't have voicemail until like 2010, 2009 or so. So like the phone would just ring and ring. So if everyone else was on the phone or everyone else was busy, I was allowed to play receptionist, but that was just about it. I think my third summer, my dad took me to a meeting and basically said, shut up and don't say anything. And then he and the guy who was meeting with actually made me get the coffee from the other side of the conference room. But I was just soaking up and learning. I thought it was cool, much cooler than when I was in it than I felt when I was out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I got to experience different industries, and every time people tell me to get more niche, I get an account that's not in the niche that I would have selected. So, you know, you guys might disagree with me on this, but I'm not a super niche player. I think that there's room for niches, but like, I'm in the biggest city in the world. You know, like, Shawn, you're not far.
Yeah.
You're not far. You guys are like, we're in a big state. We're in a big city. So like, we have access to so much that like, if I would turn this down, or I would say that I'm just specializing in this, and by the way, I've spoken to some amazing niche players, but like, you got to be willing to cast a really wide net, and that's like a leap of faith that I'm not yet ready to make. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I feel like you lose out on some stuff.
Yeah. What is the composition of your book right now, Aaron? If you don't have to use exact numbers, but personal versus commercial.
So we're about, in revenue, about 80% commercial, 20% personal. Policy count is closer to 50-50. We do mostly emerging wealth, high net worth, personal. And then the commercial side, it's like policy count, 50% small business, maybe even more. We do anything from a $500 bot to a $1 million multinational company that's going to go public. So
that's awesome.
That's what's cool, right? I mean, the funny thing is, and this will be great for scratch agents, who I know are going to be mostly artists, but anyone in the industry. Like, I had a guy reach out to me on LinkedIn last week, and he was the controller / CFO at a client of ours. And he left. I didn't really know what happened, and I'm not in the business of getting into politics and whatnot. He kind of reaches out to me. He's like, "Hey, can we chat? Love to catch up on life. Catch up. Just had a second kid. Yada yada yada." He's like, "I know this might be too small for you, but I'm starting my own business and doing this." And I'm like, "Dude, the way that I got the account that you used to work for, that you think is the biggest account in the world that we could ever get to, was by talking to them when they were maybe not a startup, but pretty close to it." And those that you get to stick with, like, isn't that the coolest thing ever? Like, we get to make money along the way.
It's the best.
And the big guys try to pry it away from us. But, like, if you can hold on to that, it's like, sometimes I look back at policies.
Yeah.
When I talk about when you're down. Like, look back in your AMS. And, like, when I got this account in 2014, they were paying $1,100, and I just had to squeeze them in the door on, a premises-only package policy to fulfill their lease, and now they're paying $250,000.
Yeah, it's wild when you see that, especially if it's a company that's like, it's an owner-only operation, specialty trade contractor, and now they have 5 trucks and a shop and all the workers' comp and all this stuff.
And cool, like, we may, as they get bigger, like, you may lose it to the big guys just because that's kind of that's the industry standard. But you know what? You may not. You may not. And, like, part of that is educating people that if you're a good agent and you've been around a little while, but even not, you have access to the exact same markets as everyone else. And, like, this agency network is amazing. There's nothing that you and I can't write, up to, like, I don't write them, but, like, we could write an airline. I could write Delta Airlines. You could write Delta Airlines. You might need a partner. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But, like, if you get stuck on a tarmac next to the CEO of Delta and he wants to be your client, like, you could do it.
So, Aaron, one of the things that we talked about with this podcast and when we were talking about getting together is I think it's going to serve to producers that are maybe just starting off, but as well as scratch owners like Shawn and myself. One of the things that I've admired greatly that you crush is your personal brand. And my previous life, similar to the family agency that you were in, I was in a long-time family agency. When I joined in 2016, I was faced with the challenge of creating the brand of Stephen Turnbull versus the Turnbull insurance name in our area, right? And so I have, done that similar to what you do, nowhere near have the success that you do. But I want you to touch on creating your personal brand, where that light bulb moment was for you with the aha moment of the Aaron Gordon brand versus Gordon Companies.
Oh, I thought you were going to thank me for allowing you to use the orange color.
Well, that too.
I thought
that
like,
too.
Whatever. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. But honestly, a lot of it was fear of the unknown. So I appreciate you saying those nice things about my personal brand, and I have a long way to go. But whether you're starting out, or whether you're a producer somewhere, or whether you're thinking about maybe one day going on your own, whether you're working in the back office or you're doing production, you should have your own brand. And that doesn't mean that you are definitely going to leave the shop that you're at or that you should leave right now. But you can't take if you want to go out on your own, you can't take your company's reputation. You can't do it. It's just not. You can say, I worked at said company and therefore I'm legitimate. But if you spend time building your own brand, people will know you. And I think one of the great things about this business, and I'll get back to why I did it, but there's like, you have the opportunity to just be yourself and be that local guy or gal. And even though we all want to write business outside of our given domicile or whatever else, our community, like the number one thing that we should be doing personal branding wise is becoming the insurance person, guy or gal, in our neighborhood. And if you do that, the work that you've put in to develop that brand will expand outside. So that was kind of, my dad has a rule, and my mom is like super strong about this also, is like, we don't sell our friends. They all come around. They all eventually come around unless their brother-in-law is like in insurance. But I don't sell my friends. And I wasn't sure that my parents were right. I was like, these people are never going to come around. They have 40-year relationships. Now, it's true, not all of them come around, but most of them have. And like 10, 12 years is a long time. And so I kind of, a couple years ago, you guys can relate to this, like COVID was crazy here. And like here I am, at the time, I mean I still am, a father of 4 kids. And I have little kids. They're running around on Zoom in my house. My wife is a pediatric occupational therapist in a school, so she's basically unemployed and she becomes a homeschool teacher. And yeah, it worked out great for the insurance industry, and I feel like we all should be luckier than ever that we chose this business over others. But like, we didn't know that for sure. So I was like, how am I going to, from this desk locked in my attic, how are people going to know that like we're here to help people and that I can help them? And so I kind of just started doing the brand thing. One thing that I will say to people who are thinking about going out on their own is the other great thing about having your personal brand is that you can have more fun and then still have the insurance-y stuff. So what I did is I created the Gordon Company's social media presence, which is basically dormant at this point. But the idea was that there would be content on there that was that like old school pale, stale, and mail insurance stuff. And then Aaron Gordon, an offshoot of Gordon Companies, who, by the way, could go elsewhere also. I don't have any plans to do that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that was my personal side of things. And obviously, because I'm representing the brand, and I think that even if your brand is your name or whatever it is, like, you guys feel the same way. If you're going to be that person in the community and your personal brand is going to be so intertwined with your commercial brand, obviously I made a commitment, which wasn't that hard for me. Like, I'm not going to do anything crazy on social media. So you'll never catch politics. You'll never catch like crazy partying or things like that. I don't curse. I don't do things like that, even though maybe that will get more viewers. Yeah. But that's because in the back of my mind, to your question, Steve, like I'm always like thinking about the commercial brand, and I'm just trying to put that personal spin on it. And I think that people, like, my license plates are at my risk. And I'm at my risk advisor, right? So, like, it's funny. My kids say it's embarrassing sometimes that my license plate is at my risk. But you know what? If it gets one account, I paid $60 for those plates. It's like one account, 1 year. And you guys are laughing, but you know what? I was driving down the highway like a month ago, and I pull into rural. I'm in like upstate New York, kind of. To me, it's upstate New York. I know you guys are going to laugh, but I was in like the Rockland County area. Like, is that considered upstate New York? So you're
That's
laughing.
me.
Like, no. Like, no way, man. Like, my mom's from Syracuse. I tell her I go upstate New York. She's like, you're nowhere near upstate New York. Like, if you can see a building or like smell the pollution, no way, man. So I pull up the highway, and this guy flags me down. Straight up flags me down, does the roll down the window, universal roll down the window sign, and says, so I roll down the window, I feel like he's lost. And he goes, are you Aaron Gordon, the guy from LinkedIn? Like some random dude. And I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever. And he's like, oh, well, I'll saw your plates when you stop back there. Now, I don't need that. And my dad, chirping in my ear is saying, like, what's the revenue on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, but I know one thing. Being a mute company in 2022 is losing you revenue. You just don't know that.
Yep.
So that's what the personal brand's about. It's not about like, oh, hey, this person saw me and then they clicked and they said, oh, I want insurance. That's happened. I don't know if it's offset the cost of what I'm doing, but it's got to be close. And then it's like,
it's amazing to see. I'm nowhere near as consistent as you, Aaron, but my plan is to get there one day. But it's amazing to see just when you're putting video content and just any insurance-related content out there, like you said, kind of the people that reach out, it's very surprising just to see, like, people from, like, 10 years ago, maybe some people in high school just out of nowhere, hey, I'm buying a house. Can you help me out with this?
You know what the other thing is? I would say this. Yeah. There's only one thing that would crush me. And it's happened early on in my career, and thank God it hasn't happened recently, and that is I didn't know that you did insurance.
Yeah.
Like, you might choose to work with someone else, you might choose to buy online, you might choose something else, but if you, and not like, oh, you meet me in a coffee shop, but if we're friends, or we're at an event, or someone introduces us, if you say, oh my God, I just renewed my insurance, I didn't even think that you did that, that crushes me. It's like, if you have pride in what you're doing. I just
bought a $5 million whole life policy. I didn't know you did life insurance, though. Otherwise, it would have went through you.
Well, no, but by the way, that's right. That I hear that, but like, And by the way, it might be that they give us like a half shot, like they're already basically in the purchasing process. But anybody, not meaning to hurt my feelings, if anybody said that to me, I'd be like, I'm doing something wrong. Now, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, before I started doing this branding thing, how could I fault them for thinking that? And what was I doing to make it that way? But like, my life's insurance, I'm okay saying that. Look, I'm 35 years old. I have a wife and 4 kids. I'm confident enough to say that I'm a loser in some people's eyes. Like, I'm not. But you know what? I'll say this. I just wrote a policy, which I can't say online. I'm recording.
I saw the tweet.
I just wrote a policy. I'm one of the most famous people in the world. Like,
can you drop the initials?
No, I can't drop the initials. It's too easy. But and honestly, it was just by being around. So it's not about the premium. It's not that. It's like, it's pretty cool. Like, it's gonna. I hope it leads to some big things. But like, if people don't know what you do, and you're not out there, and you're not your brand,
yeah. And that person, they reached out to you because they just saw you being online, the videos online and stuff.
A client of ours, a longtime client of my father's, actually told them to reach out to us.
Yeah.
And this is not like a big referral source. It's not like a center of influence thing. He was sitting with the guy, and the guy's like, "Here, look this guy up and call him. He's my guy." So I got help there, but
I gotcha.
I have to believe, and I have no data to support this. So I'm not a big data guy. I assume that I won't throw you guys in the room with me, but one of the greatest things about being in insurance is you don't have to be a genius. So I'm not the smartest guy. Definitely not
I'm with you.
Smartest school guy. So I have to believe, again, no data, that presence made the client say, 10 years ago when we met him, he didn't even know who his insurance guy was.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, a guy who he's having dinner with mentions insurance, and now he says Gordon.
Yeah, because you're constantly posting, and now you're on the top of his mind. Yeah.
Or reminding them, or sending them a handwritten note, or things like that. Like, that at least puts you in the ballpark. You still got to put in the reps and hit the ball, but you're on the field.
Yep.
So, 100%. I think if you stay on top of people's mind by putting out content on a consistent basis, I think that's the biggest thing.
The marketers call it omnipresence.
I didn't know that.
Well, why don't you expand on that, Aaron? Because I've heard some of your content directly around that. I'm not focusing on this video got 10 likes or this video, because Shawn, to your point earlier in this podcast, you don't know who's listening. You don't know who's going to listen to this. You don't know who's watching your Twitter or whatever that is. You can't really measure the direct return on some of those things. Some instances, maybe you can, but just being consistent. So, touch on what maybe you do to make sure that you're always consistent with things and at the top of mind with all of that.
Sure. So I post every day, Monday to Friday. Just not on Jewish holidays. So the last month's been a little spotty. But Monday to Friday, every day around 4 o'clock. I post a little earlier today because we were coming on this. And I try not to be super insurance-y. Every once in a while, I'll throw in some insurance stuff. But people will know what you do by clicking around on your social. And if people are interested in what you're saying, they'll figure out what you do. So I don't know how people find out what I do, but I think it's about putting in the work. Editing isn't fun. I don't do my own editing. I should. I could be a little bit better. The other thing that I would say is it's really easy to get a lot of content out there when you're feeling motivated that can carry you for when you're not. So
planning ahead.
So but not even direct planning. Like, this post is going to go till tomorrow. But if you're today, I was in the mood. It was a nice day in the city, a fall day. So I do a lot of walk and talks in New York City. I know you guys see that stuff. So I live in a big city, so that's what's awesome. And so I just took an extra round around my block on my way back from picking up lunch, and I recorded 5 videos. Now, that means that if tomorrow I'm just bogged down, I'd have to record one. Yeah. It's sitting there. And so the ability to get all of that stuff pulled out, but the thing you got to realize is that there's no ego in the social game. I met a guy, he's a great guy, State Farm agent in Long Island. He just had a video that had 600,000 views. He said this to me, so I'm going to say this publicly. It is the stupidest video you've ever seen in your life. And this guy puts out great content, goes to Ferrari dealerships and does all this crazy stuff and got crazy editing and color schemes and wacky stuff, and it was literally one of those like Instagram green screens where you can run a video behind you, and it was some guy on a motorcycle getting into an accident, and him just his facial expressions. And he got 600. And if you would have asked him before he posted it, and by the way, the views happened like 3 weeks after he posted it.
That's interesting.
Yep.
So anybody who tells you that they can track it, I don't know. And by the way, I think I'm a big Gary Vee guy, but Gary Vee says that you should be putting out like 80 pieces of content a week. I think if you shoot for that, you'll fail.
Yeah, it's
like
a lot.
One a day is easy.
That's overwhelming. Yeah.
One a day is easy.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm doing nothing right now and I need to get started, that's part A of my question. Part B, if you said you've been doing it for 2-3 years consistently now. If you were to start today, what would you do differently?
Good question. So first of all, just start. Just post. Like, your life is far more interesting than you think it is, and your original content's going to suck. Mine still is terrible. I was with someone a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about recording videos, and they were shocked that I said that my average video takes 15 takes. They're like, when you walk on the street, you do it 15 times. Why don't you just do it naturally? I'm like, because sometimes I slip all the time, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So I would say It doesn't have to be perfect. Get out there. The algorithms love the people who aren't native to the platform. So you just got to start pumping stuff out. The algorithm is going to favor video 10 over video 1 and video 100 over video 10. And I just heard that, and I'm doing it. And the easiest thing to do, honestly, is go in your calendar and set a reminder every 2 hours. 15-minute slot, even though you don't need 15 minutes. You can make it a 5-minute slot. Pick up your phone and talk to your camera for 30 seconds. And then you have content. Every 2 hours. Another easy way, if that's not for you, everybody commutes something to an office. Or if you don't commute to your office, commit every single morning from your home office. On your way to and from your car, you're just going to record something. And some of them you will never post. But if you do 2 pieces of content, if you record 2 pieces of content every day, and you try to put out 1 piece of content, that means the first week you don't put anything out. You record 10 pieces. Of those 10, you need 5. By the next week, you have 15 for 5. Then you have 15 for 5. And then you're constantly refilling that.
Yeah.
And most of this stuff is not super timely.
Right.
Like, you can post it later. Just get it. And just be comfortable. I'm going to sound so cliche, like all those people that talk on marketing YouTube videos. But get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because... But that's the truth.
Yeah,
like,
it is. It's so true.
Like, in the old days, I'll tell you what. Here will be my challenge for your listeners. Do 2 things. Do one of 2 things. Get on social a little bit, or make 100 cold calls a day. Which one makes you more uncomfortable?
Easy. That's an easy decision.
For me, it's like I did the cold calling thing, but guess what? 20 years ago and 10 years ago, the people who made the most money and the people who were the most successful in their crafts were the best salespeople. The best salespeople were the people who made the most cold calls and had the most misses to get the most hits.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do that, what are you going to do to be uncomfortable? Talk to a camera? Mm-hmm. And by the way, again, if you're not going to do anything that's crazy outlandish, you're not going to say anything that's wild political, you're not going to say anything that's like super controversial on the political spectrum, what's the worst thing that happens? Your friends make fun of you? My friends make fun of me all the time. All the time. They send me pictures of my car, like parked in random places. Whatever.
But they're paying attention. They're paying attention to those plates.
They're paying attention. You know what? If you want to write me a check for $1 million, I'll change my plates. But until you do that, I'm doing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you the other thing. So I've been thinking a lot about this. If you see me on social, I'm a big keep hustling guy. So, like, what does hustling mean? And so, to me, that meant consistency. But to your question, I believe that there's a difference between consistency. Well, there is a definitional difference between consistency and persistency. And what I'm trying to focus on now, and what I would do differently if I was starting over, is I would be more focused on persistence in addition to consistency. So persistence is doing the same thing over and over, even when times are hard. So the best thing is when you're down or when you didn't sleep the night before, still doing your 2 pieces of content. Mm-hmm. By the way, your facial expressions and your energy won't be there, so you probably won't post those. But it's just like, I don't know.
You're still showing up.
You're showing up, and you got to show up. You have to. second to people telling me that they didn't know what I did, the other thing that would crush me when I put my head on the pillow at night would be I could have done this in terms of working harder, and I didn't. So nobody has to work 20 hours a day. That's not, I don't call that working hard. But like, I could have recorded a piece of content today, and I didn't. Or I could have made that follow-up call, and I didn't. Mm-hmm. And if I could pin that down, because then in my head I'm like, oh, so that's why I didn't get the account, or that's why this didn't work out.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if I'm like, I did every single thing, and I just didn't get the account, or I just didn't hit my production goals this month, I'm like, you never know, because I dropped 20 pieces of content, so maybe next month it's going to double my production.
Yeah,
so
that's why I'm big on having like a list, like a small list, but some, like, I guess we can call them KPIs of like things I need to get done every day, just so I don't feel that way. You know what I mean? Whether it can be something as silly as every day, I don't care if it's Monday or Friday, I'm making 5 cold calls a day. I mean, it could be a small number like that, but something I can just check the box off, makes me feel better about myself, makes me feel like, you know, I'm getting in that sales mode a little bit, and I'm checking off the box. I'm feeling a little accomplished, you know, and it gives you more confidence too.
There's a guy here in the city who has an agency that specializes in not-for-profits. Good guy. Mm-hmm. We've crossed paths a few times here and there. And when I first met him, I asked him how he started his agency. So he worked at a carrier. He was a carrier rep, and he started his agency out of his bedroom, literally out of his bedroom with a computer, a notebook, and a phone. And he told me the best thing he ever did is he kept an Excel spreadsheet of every cold call he ever made.
That's cool.
And every once in a while, when he's like somewhat down, he's like, you know what? I've made 10,000 cold calls. I'm doing 2 or 3 right now. And like, he's the CEO, right? Mm-hmm. But like, that was his like
that's
thing.
Awesome.
And you look back and you're like, wow, in 2009 or 2008, when I started this thing, I called 20 people, and like, you know what would be hilarious if I called all those people again now? Like, that would be something cool. Imagine, like you said, you're doing 5 cold calls. Like, let's say you commit to doing 5 cold calls a day. Imagine 5 years from now, when you're not doing 5 a day because your business is blowing up, because if you do 5 a day, you'll do that. And then you're like, you know what? Those people, they deserve a better Shawn. And like, just because they were first on my list, they got the bad version because I was just starting.
Yeah,
so like, imagine you call these people like, and then the crazy thing is, imagine if they remember. Like, oh yeah, we spoke 4 years ago, and well, you've grown up, kid, or whatever, you know? Not grown up, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a good story.
For sure. But listen, Aaron, we're getting close to the 30 minutes already. I wanted to touch on 2 other things before we go. One is your designations. Tell me a little bit about that, because I'm in the middle of getting my health license and my CIC. Health license really isn't a designation, but the CIC. And I saw that you have a few designations, and you're one of only 4 advisors. I don't know if that's still the statistic.
I think it's still
on
the
it,
case.
Okay.
There's a one of one.
We'll roll with it.
We're going to roll with it. So honestly, I think that being overeducated is underrated. And so for me, just constantly working on the craft and just kind of trying to be the best. Yeah. One actually really helped me, and that was I went to Wharton in 2017 and got my CAPI certification, which is Certified Advisor Personal Insurance. It's a program with Wharton and Chubb. And honestly, until that time, I was in the business 7 years, and I was convinced that the personal insurance game was the bad one. I was convinced. Commoditization, you didn't want to say high net worth, no way. I spent a year in that class, and I left there saying, this will be the most profitable venture I ever do in my life, personal insurance, and it has been. So, Certified Advisor Personal Insurance, and then a couple of years later, they started another one at Carnegie Mellon called CCIC, which is Cyber Cope Insurance Certification, which is kind of high-level cyber stuff, kind of like super forensics. And that to me was interesting because I've always been a cyber guy. Yeah. The CAPI one was more hands-on salesy, even though we obviously got into market trends. The COPE one, the CCIC was cool because it was like in the room with people who deal with huge financial institutions and huge hospital systems, so just kind of hearing what they do on a cyber thing. And I think that, you know, if we're going to be successful, the Shawns, the Stevens, the Aarons of the world, like the way we're going to be successful is by doing things the right way, and cyber is going to be one of them. Like, cyber is going to be literally our existence. So that's what I would say.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. It's funny, when I work with David Carruthers on a few different things, and when I first got connected with him, one of the first things he told me, he's like, I think you should get your CIC. You know, like you're going after commercial, that program has a lot to offer, and you'll definitely learn some things from that program. And that's what I've taken from it. Listen, do I think the designation itself, someone's going to look at that and be like, ooh, Shawn has CIC, so I'm going to buy, property insurance from him. I don't think anybody cares about that. But what they don't see is, the knowledge that we have and that comes from it. And
so I don't use it other than on LinkedIn, other than headlines. So like in my signature, I can use CCIC and CAPI, and I don't, because like I just think people think that that's too nerdy. Like just imagine at one sales call, you win one prospect with one nugget that you got at a CIC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Worth it. One of one. That's it.
100%.
Appreciate you taking the time today, Aaron. Thanks for joining us.
You guys are awesome. And thanks for having me so early on with you guys. And you guys inspire me.
For people who are listening right now that haven't followed you, where's the best place to follow you, get in touch with you, connect with you, all those things?
NY Risk Advisor on the IG. You can just search me on LinkedIn, Aaron Gordon, or NY Risk Advisor. More humorous is Twitter. It's a little more ranting, but also NY Risk Advisor. I'm also on Facebook, but the IG is the best, or YouTube.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
all right, everybody.
Appreciate it, man.
That was another episode of the Scratch Agency podcast. Thanks for joining us. Aaron Gordon with Gordon Companies out of the beautiful New York City. Make sure to share, subscribe, like the show, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening or watching that episode of the Scratch Agency podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you next time. If you have any questions, you could reach out to myself or Steven on Instagram or LinkedIn, and we'll see you next week.